Hi, my name is Dushyant. I'm a student of First Timer Business School. So, talking about this college, I'm not a kind of a studious person, but this college taught me that studies are not the only thing in life. You need to participate in some different activities, and this is what fascinated me most about this college. Talking about the cultural activities, celebrating each and every festival from Lori to Christmas, each and everything is being celebrated up over here. Though being the festival parts, students get opportunity to participate in each and every festival. Apart from that, not only it's about the learning every time, it's about how you actually build yourself in the things. So talking about the cultural activities, it's not always about the participation what you get, it's also about the learning. And as we being the students of First Timer Business School, we learned about how to deal event, learning from the event the management part. This is how you learn about the management thing in the college itself, like it's working in a corporate world. So now I'll come out the faculty part. Right. This college is providing the best faculties in terms of the experience exposure of their organization. Like we have faculties up from IMM who have experience of 20 to 30 years in their own designation of field, related be the marketing field, finance field, or the operation field. Thank you.
Hello, first time by students. Welcome to 13th knowledge session. Pradeep, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, very much.
Okay, okay. Today's speaker is Mr. Pradeep Kumar. Pradeep is a graduate of IIM Ahmedabad 1972 and his graduation was from equally prestigious Institute of IT Kanpur in electrical engineering. He has had a corporate career spanning over 48 years, really working career of 48 years, out of which 38 years were in consulting. He's, he started after working for over 10 years into corporate sector. He started his own consulting company. He co-founded rather a consulting company, Cymatech Consultants, which were into business strategy and structure. And they advised, I think, over 250 companies in their working career in Cymatech, which included private sector and public sector companies, very well-known names like ABB Group, Bhilwara Group, Cadillac, Cochin Refineries, Jake Industries, Renbexy, Semtel, and MNCs like Samsung, Westinghouse, AT&T, government departments like Department of Electronics, CDAC, DSIR, family-owned businesses like Banaras House, Indira Industries, academic institutions. And then later on, he also worked as a senior partner with Mescon Consultancy Limited as a senior partner into consultancy division. Pradeep in 2009 to 2017 also advised Indus Business Academy as an advisor to the chairman and member of academic council. Pradeep has this 10 years of working. His most outstanding, not in terms of seniority, but remarkable working experience was in BHEL, which was amongst the first one to have strategic planning division in public sector companies. When at a time when the practice of strategic planning was just not there, and then he worked in other corporate like Freedom Refrigerations and Government of India organizations. There are two things which are perhaps you would not find in his biodata is that my interaction with some of the companies where he was at, Cymatech was advising was that these Cymatech people reach to the crux of the issue very quickly and they try to explain that. He said the experience between Cymatech and others were that other MNC consulting companies would give them a couple of thick volumes of reports which they will always leave to second level and third level managers to go through. And they say whereas Cymatech would give a small little report which was crux of the whole things. That is what is the real strategy. And something which is, so I do not know whether you'd be able to get a whiff of that in this lecture or not. But over to you, Pradeep.
Oh, Sunil, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Particularly all my young friends who are going to start one of the most important journeys of their life in first timer. I want to, before I start on my subject today, I want to tell you that it has always been a great pleasure for me to interact with youngsters like you, because I really strongly believe that at our age now, our continuity or our there only as long as we are connected to the youngsters. So it is always a selfish motive for me to be connected with youngsters as much as possible. So I am very much excited talking to all of you, although we are on Zoom today and not in face-to-face, which is my first preference for interacting with youngsters. But nevertheless, let's try to make best out of that. Before I start, I want to congratulate all the new entrants to FOSTEMA for two excellent decisions they have taken. One is of the course. I'm sure all of you after your graduation must have had a couple of options and finally you have chosen to do PGDM or MBA or whatever it is. This is one decision, and the second decision is the choice of the institute. Let me first dwell for a few minutes on choice of the course, business management, MBA or PGDM is one course which is unique in so many ways. Some of the outstanding features which has always fascinated me, and because of which I always advise youngsters who have got little interest in this field or reasonable amount of interest to go for it is, see, this is one course which is really, truly a breadth course. It's not at a MBA level, it's not a depth course, it's a breadth course. It is science, it is arts, it is multidisciplinary, it is adaptive. It can be, this semester there is same course, next semester you'll find that course structure has been changed because the environment has changed. You won't find these things anywhere else. And besides, this is one course which goes beyond teaching you, giving you knowledge and tools and techniques. There are so many interesting things, like a few things which I always give lots of value. You'll learn about communication skills. You'll learn about non-linear thinking. You'll be trained to be more creative in life. And last but not the least, in every other course, there is excessive focus on analysis. And you know that analysis often leads to paralysis. But MBA is one course where more emphasis is given on synthesis than analysis. And what is synthesis? It is just the opposite of analysis, where you can put up things together and build a sensible picture, a larger picture. And this is going to be one of your most important skills in life to become a successful manager. And one very mundane reason, some may like to call it, this is one professional course which will be always demanded, whether the industry is booming or industry in doldrums. When it is booming, it is obvious you need more managers. But when it is in doldrums, all the wise things to set our order. At that time also, they need MBAs. So whatever is isolated from the ups and downs in the economy, you will always be needed. So that is as far as your choice of course is concerned. Coming to the choice of the institute, as I will later on in the course of when I talk about strategy, I will tell you, there is nothing like best. The search for best is futile. What is important and how companies win today is not by being the best. They win by being different. They win by differentiating themselves from others. And this is one parameter in which I can tell you with confidence that Fostima has really differentiated itself on the parameters where lies their strength. And that is how they are already a big winner in this. For these two decisions, let me once again congratulate all of you who are going to start your journey at Fostima. Now, let me ask you a very interesting question. I'm particularly addressed to all the youngsters. Do you think joining Fostima, you will be entering hell or you will be entering heaven? What do you think? This is actually, the answer is a mixed one. When you enter, you'll have to work like hell. Time will become your most valuable resource. And I think all your professors will be delighted to see tears of joy in your eyes when you will be burning midnight oil, learning. There will be so many opportunities for you to learn that you will wonder whether you should waste your time by sleeping. So there will be a hellish flavor there. But all the fruits which you'll reap, they'll give you a feeling that you are in heaven. So it's neither hell nor heaven. It's a wonderful mixture of both hell and heaven. And in this context, I want all of you to read one very interesting book. The book's title is Snapshots from Hell. Snapshots from Hell by Peter Robinson. Mr. Peter Robinson was a very well educated, Oxford educated. He was the speech writer of President Bush. And then he wrote his exams for joining business school, and he got selected in none other than famous Stanford Business School. And after spending maybe a little bit of time there, maybe less than a term, he was inspired to write this book, Snapshot from Hell. You can understand what he means by that. And I'm sure Fostima Library should have this book. If it is not there, I will strongly recommend to get a few copies for all of you to read when the time comes. Interesting, very interesting book. I'm not saying that drop everything and read, but it should be in your reading list. Okay. Now, let me introduce you to the subject. One thing I want to tell you, and assure you based on my experience, there is no company worth its salt who doesn't do planning. An interesting thing is, quite a few of them, when you talk to them, they say, "Oh, hum log to planning nahi karte." Then you prove them after some time that look at this, what you're doing is really planning. So planning is almost universal, and it started ever since the business started. I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to share a few slides with you. And let me start, just a minute. Let me see whether I can now share the screen. So I'm going to now, I'm now going to tell you, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to show you two interesting quotes. One is from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know who's Alice and who's so don't worry about it. The message is important. Alice asks the proverbial Cheshire cat, "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" asked Alice. And what did the wise Cheshire cat answer? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to. And Alice answers, "I don't much care where." And of course, the Cheshire cat smartly answered, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go." So this really captures what planning is all about. And now the second one is from Abraham Lincoln. This interesting quote is, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 hours in sharpening the axe." I think the message is clear. The guy who straight away wants to go and start chopping the tree may find that his axe was not sharp, or he may find some other difficulties, and he may spend more than 6 hours without chopping the tree. Whereas this person who is spending 4 times, what it really means is he'll spend necessary amount of time in anticipating difficulties, preparing for tools and techniques before getting down to the task, and he's more than likely to succeed. Both these quotes, I think, very aptly give us feeling and sense to us what planning does. Now, just to understand what planning is, I think all of you use this word so often, planning, and all of you have a very good sense. But just to complete the meaning in the context which I'm going to talk about, if somebody is given a task to accomplish, he will have 2 options. One is think about various steps, sequences, anticipate difficulties, try and project what may lie ahead, etc., before you start. So when you do all these things, a collective name for all these things is planning. And the other option is, the moment that you come to know what is the task, you start head on and start doing the work. Chances are that you will drift and you may not be able to complete your work in time. So clearly, the main virtue of planning is it maximizes the possibility of your completing your task in time and, of course, cost. Now, this planning over a period of time becomes strategic planning. Now, let us see, this is very interesting how this transition took place. If you trace the growth of business from the capitalism period till the present, we'll find that prior to 1950, there was tremendous amount of demand, and the entire focus of the business community used to be only on production. You produce, you are successful, right? And then after World War, when the untapped demand was more or less getting saturated, selling, it started becoming difficult for them to clear their inventories. And then the entire focus of business managers shifted from production to sales era. Okay? And then in late 60s, early 70s, one of the most important players in the world of business, customer arrived on the scene. And then entire focus shifted to the customer. It became difficult. It became difficult for the competition started growing up. It became difficult to meet customer needs, and the focus shifted on customers, competitive advantage, etc., etc. And the various players making similar things started competing with each other. The journey became far more complex and fascinating. So this is why this change place. It's very interesting now for us to just see what is the difference in these two. In the past, there were less number of players. There were not much global trade, business environment. Technology was not developing at that pace. Communications channels were slow. So generally, everyone felt that we can predict what might happen 2 years, 3 years, 4 years hence. Now competitors are well defined. Each player knew who all are my competitors. And then the focus used to be planning for us from today forward. If I am producing X amount, if my volume is X today, next year I want to do 1.5X. And everything was accordingly planned. But when the time changed, and what are the main drivers which have changed this time? To me, the most important driver for this change is technology development. Rapid pace at which technology is developing, more and more new products are being developed. Education, customers are becoming smarter and customers are becoming demanding, right? And because of this, more and more players in the market, each trying to do better than the other, intense competition in the field. So survival, profitability, all these things started putting pressure on different companies. And since every company wanted to reach certain predestined places, the most difficult problem for them was, earlier comfort was they knew they could linearly project what they need to do, that accordingly work backwards on their resources, and they were successful. When the environment became unpredictable, then it thought the best thing is let us try to have a desirable future. Let us make effort to make the future favor us. Let us make the future as we wish to have. Then instead of planning from today forward, the planning changed from future to backwards. You decide where you want to go and then try and work backwards. This is where I think the birth of strategic planning took place. Let me also explain the same thing in the next couple of slides. If you look at the essence of planning, we are talking about these three things. So essence of planning is really properly understanding where my company is today. And the second and third things are equally important, if not more, where you wish to reach and how you should negotiate this journey. Now, negotiation of this journey was relatively simple in the earlier era when competition was not a dominant force, where the environment was very predictable and almost everybody knew who all are their competitors and what they're doing. But the change of technology, which brought unpredictability in the environment, which brought intense competition and demanding customers, linear projection, etc., became irrelevant. All of you know how rapidly the environment changes these days and how difficult it is to plan. In this context, let me tell you, there was a time when companies like Matsushita, they used to have a long-range plan of 100 years. Now, if somebody says, I want to make a long-range plan of 100 years, they will laugh at you. In fact, now we talk about quarters. That is the impact of unpredictability in the environment on the planning cycles. But so when these changes have taken into the business environment, and the planning, instead of going today forward, has become future backwards, strategy has come into the picture. So now you have a good idea of what is strategic planning. Has two important words, planning and strategy. Let me spend a few minutes on, I've already talked about this. The birth of strategic planning mainly took place because of the arrival of growing competition. And growing competition associated with that is the change in the environment, technology development, customer education, etc., etc. Options. Now, what is strategy? All of you will agree that this is perhaps the most used and abused word in the business world. For anything and everything, we use the word strategy. That's not the intention here. I'm using the word strategy in a very profound sense. Actually, in day-to-day conversations, the answer to how is strategy? What is your strategy today? So what is the strategy to go to Connaught Place, etc., etc. In fact, any program or any plan, we usually call it strategy. That is not the thing. The strategy essentially means choices. In very simple words, strategy means choices which you make to give you sustainable long-term advantage. Choices which help create long-term sustainable competitive advantage to you. Choice of doing something, and equally important is choice of deciding not to do a certain thing. Michael Porter's famous thing is, he thinks that one of the most important strategies are where you decide not to do a certain thing. So he said, don't be eager to do only things. If your analysis, if your synthesis, and if your everything else suggests that don't do that, don't let that be your strategy. And very broadly speaking, strategy is the antidote to competition. You understand antidote? It's like when you take a wrong medicine by mistake, to nullify the effect that doctors give you antidote, give you another medicine which completely nullifies the bad effects of the medicine. So treat it like an antidote to competition. And that is what is needed. When competition had started bothering every player in the industry, then there was a need, like today we are looking for a vaccine for COVID-19. The need for handling competition was strategy. And that is why you hear even today, from 56 years, when the strategy word was coined, it dominates the scene. And every business manager worth his salt wants to champion this concept and contribute, play his role in his company's strategy formulation. And this is an important point I want you to carry home with you. If there is no competition, there is no strategy needed. Competitive success will come to you. I think two more things which are my favorite, and I want my young friends here to really make a serious note of this. Competitive success does not come by being the best. Because being the best is a very elusive thing. It is very, very difficult. Actually, I will go to the extent of saying that best doesn't exist. What do you mean by best? So it is not the best, but competitive success will come when you are able to successfully differentiate yourself to your advantage. So more important than trying to be the best, which is a futile effort, try to be differentiate yourself from your competitors on a parameter which is supported by your strengths, and then derive your competitive success. Similarly, competitive advantage, this word is also very loosely used. Here I want to bring in two words, two definitions sort of. One is something like on-stage competitive advantage, and the other is backstage competitive advantage. Now, on-stage competitive advantage is something which your customers can easily see. For example, if you're making a food product or something like that, your customer are the ones who will decide whether your product's taste is better or your competitor's taste is better. There is absolutely no point in 5 of us in my own company sitting every day in the boardroom and saying, wow, our taste is the best. On stage competition, the person who matters most is your customer. He has to decide. You will gain advantage of this competitive advantage only when it is recognized by your customers. right? So there is absolutely no point. Every day we can pat our backs that we are very good in this. But unless it is acknowledged by my customers, this competitive advantage will bring nothing to me. Similarly, the backstage competitive advantage is what the customer doesn't see. But these are basically derived from your own strengths and weaknesses. There, you are the judge. You decide whether you do this job better, whether your technology backup is stronger in this. So unless both these things are unison, your competitive advantage will be of no use to you, right? So just to sum up, strategy is there because there is competition. If there is no competition, for example, when there were monopolies, nobody ever bothered about strategy. You worry about strategy because there is competition. You don't worry about beating the competition. You know, we have so often heard this word, we'll beat them. Now, let me just narrate a small joke to you. I think Sunil was worried whether I'll tell any jokes or not. So let me just tell you, I think all of you must be familiar with this joke. I'm very sure you must be familiar. It's about the flying Sikh, Milkha Singh ji. One early morning, he was running. So some of his neighbors stopped him and said, "Hey, Milkha Singh साहब क्या हुआ? कहाँ जा रहे हैं?" बोले, "अरे एक चोर आ गया था, तो लोगों ने कहा पकड़ो उसको." तो I was just chasing him. So they asked, "What happened?" बोले, "अरे वो हमको हरा सकता, मैं तो कहाँ बहुत पीछे छोड़ा है उसको, वो पता नहीं कहाँ होगा, मैं तो बहुत आगे आ गया हूँ, मेरी तो स्पीड बहुत हाई है." So you know, trying to beat the competition, he has beaten the thief, but who gained? It is the thief who gained. He was not caught. Milkha Singh, he kept on running. So that is many times when you're obsessed with beating the competition, don't beat. You do something intelligently once again. Create a sustainable differentiation from your competitor and then taste competitive success. So don't try to beat the competition. Don't try to be best. That is why I was telling you students, when you are looking for an institution for doing engineering or MBA, often the parents say, best institute में मेरे अपने बच्चे को पढ़ने के लिए भेजना है. What is the best institute? Nobody knows. So don't get into the trap of best and beating everyone. So that is where you have to use your brain, isn't it? Not beat, but sit down quietly, think non-linearly, think simply, think on what parameter can I be better than the competitor, and then only use your energy there and not on anything else, right? So this now gives you a sense of strategy. I also gave you a sense of systematic planning. Now when we combine these two things together, strategic planning emerged. And I must tell you, as Sunil was mentioning, in 1975, when I joined BHEL, it was not only the public sector, this was the first organized company in India which had embarked upon strategic planning. And I'm tempted to tell you, one of my real gurus whom I met at BHEL, the Padma Vibhushan Dr. V. Krishnamurthy and Mr. K.R. Parameshwar, these two gentlemen were real visionary, and being in public sector, knowing all their limitation of hiring MBAs, they sat down and decided that come what may, whether we can give matching salaries or not, I want to create a group of only IIMs, only MBAs from IIM Ahmedabad, and initiate strategic planning in BHEL. So in 1975, it was unheard of. Dr. Krishnamurthy made efforts to contact me. But since I was working with Professor Menon in Electronics Commission, through him, he wanted me to come and meet him. Then, you know, within 10 minutes, he convinced me that don't ask me what salary I'll give, just come and work here. And then the strategy decided was that if we can get 1 or 2 gold medalists of IIM also here in planning, in our strategic planning department, which they wanted to create with us, we'll automatically help. And some of you know the names, H.K. Agarwal and Pradeep Bhargav. the two gold medalists from my previous batch, they were in Atomic Energy Commission. And again, Dr. Krishnamurthy used his good offices and managed to get both of them. So together, once we were there, my God, in no time, we were 15 to 20 of us, and the strategic planning department was started in BHEL. And the joke was, we didn't ask what was our salary at that time. And the after effect of that is that till today, we don't know what our salary is. Okay? And we were taught that paisa haath ki mail hota hai. And somehow that stuck with us. I don't know if it was good or bad, but we started treating the paisa haath ki mail hota hai. But my God, what we learned there, that gave us the strength to start my own management consulting company in 1980. Not only me, all three of us. Okay? So we were the pioneers of what happened once we made the first outline of strategic plan for BHEL. Then it became like a showpiece. Every company wanted to come to BHEL, meet us, invite us to their office, and start strategic planning process. Anyway, that's a different story. So when you combine these two things, what is it that we are trying to achieve? Now we are trying to create, because of the difficulty, the gap between where you are and where you want to reach, that journey has become so, it's no more a straight road. It's a very, very tortuous, very complicated path. You don't know what kind of surprises are on the way. You don't know whether it's a straight road, how many turns this road will take. So we said, strategic planning process should create a desirable future for us. It will help us, it should help us in bridging the gap between where we are and where we want to go. And more importantly, we should exploit the environment. Don't allow the environment to just pass by us. Just try to extract whatever you can from this changing environment. And when you're following this process, it was realized very quickly that strategic planning is not the task of one or two persons in the company. Unless there is a cultural shift in the way every key manager in the company thinks, strategic planning will not achieve its purpose. So spreading the culture of strategy and strategic thinking across the company also became a byproduct of installing strategic planning process in the companies. Many times this question is asked to me, who does the strategic planning? Can I specialize in strategic planning? I see so much of obsession in youngsters in deciding about what area to specialize while doing MBA. I have a very strong view on this. I very strongly believe that at MBA level, you don't become an expert of anything. Nor should you ever think that you have become a marketing expert or a HR expert. Your expertise will come either by pursuing PhD and becoming a teacher later, or by hard industry experience. Just by doing 2 or 3 more elective courses, you don't become an expert of any of the functional areas. And therefore, once again, my advice, whether you like it or not, at least in first year, don't even think of what is going to be, which specialization is better for you. You can only say with humility that I have a little more interest in this subject than the other. See, if you become obsessed with 1 or 2 subjects in specialization, how will you ever become a CEO of the company? I have never seen a CEO who only knows marketing, or he only knows finance, or he only knows HR. All those persons who are CEOs, if you probe them, you'll find that these guys from the very young age had interest in almost everything. And that is where the breadth part of this MBA program is so fascinating to prepare you to become a CEO. So strategic planning is no single person's job. At most, there may be a small or reasonably big department to facilitate strategic planning process. But the strategic planning is job of each and every manager working in the company. This point should be very clear. So no point asking whether can I specialize in strategic planning. If you are smart, you will realize one day that you are ready to work in strategic planning. Okay. Now, having understood strategic planning is the need of the hour, keeping in mind the intricacies and complexities of the modern business environment. Now let us see. Let me spend a little bit of time on the process of strategic planning. Now let me ask you this. Suppose we want to start strategic planning. And as I mentioned to you, the essence is where you are, where you want to go, and how will you smoothen or make this journey happy and efficient. First question to ask is, why does my company exist? Why? What is the, as in French they say, raison d'être of my company? What do we stand for? Or in more simple words, what is my business? What customer need my company is fulfilling or is going to fulfill if you're going to start a new company? So why do we exist? What business we are in? What business should we be in? What business could we be in? And this is which fundamental need of what type of customers is my business. So what business we are in? The famous one-liner from Peter Drucker. What business we are in? So when first time I heard this quote from Peter Drucker, he said, if you can understand what business you are in, half the planning is done. Then I used to laugh. What is this fellow think? Just because he's Peter Drucker, he can say anything and get away with that. But now I realize how many people really fully understand what business they are in. And if you don't understand what business you are in, you will be drifting in future. You will never reach where you want to go. So the first question, now answer to this question is the famous word mission of the company. So the step one in your strategic planning process is deciding or revisiting your mission. If you're an existing company, lots of people have something in their mind, but they have never bothered to articulate. So important thing is that whether you articulate or not, but it is extremely important for all of us to realize that this will benefit my company only when everybody is in this game. That means this mission should also have a magic, or there should be a clue there somewhere which should make every member of the organization proud of doing that job. So if I articulate my mission in that manner, then besides giving me a framework for my business, this will automatically tie the whole organization, and this company will become a true organization working for the common purpose. Everybody will feel proud, everybody will feel emotionally attached, everybody will be highly motivated, and everybody will be focused on what we want to do. So what the starting point in strategic planning process is, what is the mission of my organization? Okay. So in fact, okay, having just explained to you what mission is, because there's always, I mean, I don't even care whether you understand what is mission and what is vision, but the two things we should understand clearly. In fact, some of the authors and some of the people are so confused. Then they said, instead of telling what is mission or what is vision, we'll combine the two together. खुद ही समझ लो कौन सा mission है, कौन सा vision. But it is very clear that mission is not a destination. Mission is generally a timeless cause, unless there are some major changes in the environment which forces you to change. Your business stands for something, and that's what you continue doing. I'll give you examples as we move on. Whereas the vision is almost like an intermediate stop in your journey. Where do we want to reach? There should be a sense of time frame. In what period of time? Where do we want my organization to reach? What is my journey? Where we want to reach? So if you follow your mission, you will reach your vision. This is the relationship between mission and mission. If you accomplish your mission, you will be nearer to completing your vision. And while doing those things, it's extremely important in today's environment. What will be the core values which will govern my business? I think lots of senior managers sitting in the audience will realize that today ethics and values, the role which they play or they should be playing, has become far more important than only achieving certain numbers. So these three things together, I like to call it, anyway, let me just show you, I think, So I call these three things together, I call the guiding light for the strategic planning, guiding light for the organization. You know, the mission and vision, etc., they are almost like North Star for you. They are fixed. You don't go to North Star. But wherever you are, it keeps giving you a perspective and sense that yes, you are moving in the right direction. Now, when you don't have these things, in the absence of a beacon or a North Star, chances are that the pressures of the environment will make you drift. And what will happen? Jana tha Japan, pahunch gaya Cheen. This has happened with so many companies. Where you want to go, but you are not focused. There's nothing to guide you. And based on the firefighting strategy, which is so common in Indian industry, you realize 2 years, 3 years down the line that you are farther away from where you wanted to reach. So step one, guiding light. You decide about mission, vision, and core values of your company. Okay, same thing. What is our business, behavior norms? Okay, I've just summarized here. Many times this question comes. Agar mission nahi hoga, to kya hoga? As I just explained to you, if you don't have a North Star, if you don't have a beacon light, same thing will happen. If you see, just having these things for the namesake or just hanging on the wall a mission statement is not what I'm talking about. It is extremely important for the leaders in the organization to make sure that mission, vision, and core values are shared as widely as possible by everyone in the company. Otherwise, otherwise it is just as good as not having the mission at all. Okay, that is why, I mean, there are techniques of should you write a very long mission, should your mission should be small. Generally, I would be happy if everybody can immediately tell you what is the mission of his organization. There are some companies in India whose mission statement runs in one page. I don't think even the chief executive can tell you what is the mission of his company. So people get carried away when they are writing just for the sake of writing the mission of the organization. It should be really crisp, understandable by everybody, and there should be an element of motivation, deep sense of accepting that purpose, sense of identity into these things. It's a very emotional thing about mission. Vision is the mega goal of the company, but it has to be realistic, credible, and attractive. There's no point in your visions which are not attractive. Nobody will be happy. So when the guiding light is being decided by the company, all the inputs, where does the input come from? So, I mean, there can be two situations: starting a company or revisiting an existing company who wants to formalize their planning process. All the input for this mainly comes from, besides, of course, the environmental scenario, it comes from the stakeholders of the company. Of course, sometimes it happens that one stakeholder is so dominant that he almost single-handedly decides. But those kinds of missions, as we realize later, are not shared by everybody and they fail to deliver. So generally, all the stakeholders should be involved in this. They should brainstorm. They should think hard, and then generally you'll find that some very, very interesting entrepreneurs I have seen. It is embedded in their body. Only consultants have to extract this out from there and help them in writing down. Okay. So I'm just to give example, I'm giving the example of Google. This is Google's mission statement: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This to the point. This is Google's mission statement. Okay. Then the second one, and this is BHEL's mission statement: providing sustainable business solutions in the field of energy, industry, and infrastructure. It's giving a very crisp idea of what needs we are going to fulfill, what is going to be our business. And BHEL's vision is to become a global engineering enterprise, providing solutions for a better tomorrow. Naturally, visions have to be broken down as I move forward. When I move forward, I tell you, the vision is really a mega goal of the organization. This is my dream. We want our company. And unless this dream is seen by everybody, unless this dream is shared by everybody, it is almost impossible to reach there. That is why these guiding lights have to be internalized, shared widely, and charismatic leaders succeed so well in sharing these things with a large cross-section of their organizations. Okay. So I will just, during the entire strategic planning process, few things become extremely important. One of the biggest driver was external environment. So analyzing the external environment is, we don't have so much time, so we'll not go into detail, but now there are extremely good models through which these external environment, more than collecting data, what is important is, there was a time we used to capture this information on that time, but no more. Now we are trying to find out the trends in the external environment and trying to figure out what this trend in environment, what kind of impact it will have on my company. So usually, many of you might have heard, we call it a pestle analysis, political, social, economics, legal background. This is just broken down, but the whole idea is that what is happening in the external environment, which way the external environment is likely to move, the company should have a very good handle on that. And similarly, we have to also understand what is happening inside. If you get worried only about what's happening outside, you totally forget. Because one way the strategy will become successful when you can, in a very creative manner, match the company's resources and opportunities in the environment. So it's extremely important to do external analysis and also understanding internal analysis. These days, there are so many interesting models available for doing both external analysis as well as internal analysis. My favorite model for internal analysis is the famous 7S model of McKinsey, which I used to use 30 years ago. Even today in my consulting, I use it very, very successfully. So once you know those things, the next step after the guiding light is to figure out, do a SWOT analysis for the company. SWOT is a short form of strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It is very, very important, and really it has to be honestly done. Again, the important thing is only understanding what is my strength today is not important. What is important is to understand what is likely to be the strength tomorrow, right? Or what was my strength yesterday, what is it today, and what is tomorrow. Same thing is true of weakness, opportunity, and threat. Once again, a small joke, in a club, one businessman was sitting there, and he was introduced by one of his chamchas that meets Mr. So-and-so. He's a billionaire. So another smart guy sitting there, he asked, okay, is he a billionaire? Very impressive. But what was he last year? He said, last year he was a millionaire. Then he realized that there is no point spending any time with this guy. He was a millionaire. Last year he was a billionaire. So in a year's time, from billionaire, he had become a millionaire. So it was not his strength. So that is why it's much more important to understand where we were on these scales, where we are today, and where we are likely to be tomorrow. Because these form a very, very important input for the strategy formulation, which I'm just going to come in a minute's time. Now, from the guiding lights, SWOT analysis, we now apply the formula of step by step. If you want to climb the mountain, step by step. So vision has to be now broken down into goals and objectives. Many times, again, these words create a bit of confusion. First, you break it down into goals, and goals are not quantified. They are basically broad direction. You will have some profitability, volume growth, image of the company, continuity of the company, etc. And then break those goals further into objectives, which are quantified, by which time, who will be answerable for those, etc., etc. So, but important thing is whenever you're setting your goals and objectives is that these goals and objectives need to be a stretch goal and objective. I mean, it should not happen that you just extend your hand, you reach. The whole company needs to stretch do more than the 110%, then you should be able to. So they should be ambitious, very ambitious goals, but yet achievable. Otherwise, you'll be accused of only kite flying. That's not the idea of strategic planning. Okay, so once these goals and objectives are decided, then the task, if you have done work up till this stage, seriously, honestly, your task is more than half done. What is left now is based on these. See, for example, let me just give you an example. If you've done your SWOT analysis properly, by making a simple 2x2 matrix of what is called TWO's matrix, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, you would find all these 4 cells giving you clue to what type of strategies you want to make. Strength match with the opportunities. Strength overcome your. And again, my advice to youngsters here is 2x2 matrix is going to be almost like a stethoscope for a doctor. Try and use 2x2 matrix in anything which you're learning. The moment you see 2 variables, try and see whether you can make a 2x matrix and the picture will become so clear to you. So with all these SWOT analysis, that means environment, internal, or based on all these analyses, we figure out what are the areas in which we need to, as we call it, strategic thrust areas. Which are the areas where we have to do something especially with respect to my competitors, right? So you normally identify 5, 6 strategic thrust areas, and taking clue from those strategic thrust areas, then we get down to programs, tactics, projects to be implemented during the time frame of the plan. Time frame of the plan is also a very important question these days. As I mentioned to you, there was a time when people used to dream of making 100-year, 200-year plans. But nowadays, it has something to do with the predictability in the environment, rate kind of technology is being used. But what happens today is a 3-year and a 5-year is a fairly ambitious long-range plan. And companies, they start with a 5-year plan, and many of them adopt to a rolling plan model, where every year a 5-year plan is rolled into a next 5 year. And from these 5-year plans, you make your annual plans. And with these projects and tactics and programs which you identify, then you identify champions in the company. I mean, if your eyes and ears are open, you can always identify some players in the company who champion those projects. And it is best to make them in charge of those projects. The chances are they will take it to their logical control. So you make those plans, projects, whether it's starting a new company, exploiting a new market, hiring, etc., etc. Then all those gamut of strategies come. And now for making those strategies, we have got so many tools and techniques available. BCG matrix, portfolio analysis, all those things will come in the picture, which you learn when you start studying at First HEMA. And then ultimately you integrate it together and you give shape to your 5-year plan. Let me just see, just to give you a hierarchy, these strategies together, if we get broken into these, one is entire corporation level corporate strategy, where usually board, growth, technology acquisition, merger, etc. comes. Then the next level is the business level strategy, which is where most of the time people spend. And then functional strategies will become even more focused. This is the broad hierarchy of the strategy. In your strategic plan, you'll find all these will find place. Now, let me just put this together in a strategic planning model. So, the step 1 is, what are the inputs which you need? As I mentioned, stakeholders' expectation, external environmental analysis, internal environmental analysis. You know that all are important. External environment changes are the main drivers which has necessitated for us to go towards strategic planning. So give due respect to it. Then think about this guiding light. Step 2, mission, vision, value system. Then you do your SWOT analysis, internal environment. Again, you see it more carefully. Set your goals, which are directional. Then your specific objectives, which are broken into, because objectives you will have things like what percentage of market share in this market, which countries, which markets, all those things, which product to drop, and all those things. Advertising strategy, all those things will come there, matter of detail now. Then you formulate in the strategic thrust areas, key strategies. Formulate that. All these three: corporate, business, functional, right? Then we go to the next step. You break this down from vision to goals, objectives, and projects and programs. Projects and program, again, extremely important. Your projects and programs and all this you have done will be not if you don't match resources. So work out what resources are required for this carefully, see from where and how you'll arrange those resources, implement those strategies, then evaluate. At many times at this stage, some of the strategies are dropped. And then you get into strategy implementation and review. Before I end, I just want to also tell you that strategic planning process is a way of life, is a journey, it's not a destination. And for success, my own experiences, the most important thing is the leader at the top of the organization. He should be a believer in strategic planning. He should be a believer of strategy. He should be a great motivator, great communicator. Entire company, there should, unless these plans are completely bought out by everyone, chances of success are nil. So the leader makes all the difference. He should communicate. He should become the glue, bind people together. He should, at the front end, to organize resources and see through, stand by the company in difficult times. And so this strategic planning process, once started, it becomes very difficult for those who get involved in this seriously to leave this. They become strategic planners for their life. Okay? Thank you very much. If you have some questions, I would like to handle them. So, is there anything to be done by me here at this stage?
Please see your chat box if there are any questions in that.
Okay, let me just see. Where chat box? Okay, there seem to be some questions.
You can stop sharing your screen if you want, so that you.
Okay.
Stop sharing.
No, I will stop sharing. Okay. Is it? Okay. Now, let me go to share. Yeah. I have a few questions. So let me just see. Oh my God. What's your strategy plan during MBA? Wow. You're asking me what should be your strategy plan? My strategy plan is to sit here and enjoy and see the tears of joy in your eyes. What you should be doing, as I mentioned, there are so many opportunities available in business school, particularly institute like First Timer, that your plan should be only to make full use of everything that's available to you. Focus in all the subjects. Don't worry about the specialization. That will come, not a specialization. Your liking for some subjects will automatically come by the time you finish your first year. Otherwise, learn rapid reading. Read as much as you can. What is 7S model of internal analysis? Tell something about this. I mean, it's a long thing, but this was developed by McKinsey, Anthony Athos and all, when they were doing a study on search of excellence. Basically, there are 7 characteristics of organization. And let me see, foremost is shared vision, okay? Then we have strategy, structure, systems, staff, style, and skill. These 7, if an organization, all these 7 are supposed to be in sync with each other, then that organization is supposed to be on the path of excellence. I mean, if you're interested, read. Lots of material is available on this. In fact, in search of excellence, this was the model which was dominantly used by Anthony Athos for working out which are the excellent run companies. Sir, what if at some point of time your defined plan doesn't go accordingly? Okay, I forgot to mention the strategic plan is only complete because while making the strategic plan, you always at various stages make some very critical assumptions. As you know, with so much of uncertainty in the business environment, chances are that some of those assumptions will not come true. So your plan can go haywire. That is why there is always a contingency plan made even when your first plan is ready. As sometimes you call it plan A, B, C, etc. So there is something to fall back. So that is why whenever there is something where some very critical assumption is being made, people together should also think, what if it doesn't come through? My God, somebody wants to buy shares of my company. You can buy shares, but I can't give you shares right now. I can only take the money for the time being. At appropriate stage, shares will be given. Okay? Well, my company is not a listed company, so don't worry. I have always believed in keeping things simple. And that's what you should also, that should also be your strategy in your MBA program. Keep things simple. Sir, as you said, there is nothing as best. But in strategic planning, we need to, whatever decision we make, it has to be the best decision. It is not best. I mean, best in some sense. Best decision for your company's benefit. But per se, it won't be best. Because best on what? It will be only on some criteria. If somebody you know is extremely good in technology, your product features, there's no point in trying to be better than him. You think of some other parameter on which probably you can compete. So best, obsession with best is, best is almost non-existent. What should be our strategy while gathering knowledge from FOSTEMA? I think not only FOSTEMA, for any institute, for a student like you, the best strategy is be in library as much as possible. Okay? I've not seen your new library in FOSTEMA, but I'm sure all your professors must have made it a very, very interesting and comfortable place, full of books and journals. Best, even though you can have many things on in the room on your laptop, but please go to the library. That atmosphere is magical in the library. Okay. So you are asking again, differentiate between mission and vision. I told you, mission is what do you do? What is your business of your company? And vision is where you want to reach. When you follow your mission, you will reach your vision. Okay? This distinction should be very, very clear. One is almost like a destination. Another is your journey. I mean, what will you do? Why are you existing? What is the business of your company? Mission is what is your business of the company. And vision is what is your dream, what you want to become. Do you think pursuing PGDM along with CA is a good option? If you can do, acquire as much knowledge as possible, but spreading your attention to things may or may not be a very great idea. But if you're passionate about both these things, you can do it. But why, I don't know, why do you people get such thoughts? If you're already a CA and doing PGDM, then there's a different question. But while doing PGDM, if you also want to pursue CA, then the whole question becomes a little different. I mean, while keeping things simple, one thing is focus at a thing at a time and do it as well as you can. What is the strategy to work efficiently when things change at rapid pace? If things outside running fast, you also have to run fast. Because of these changes, only the simple planning, which used to be sit down with a calculator and project for the next year, things have become so complicated to catch up with the changes in the environment. Same strategy you'll have to adapt at your personal level. Okay? Is Porter's value chain model plays a big role in strategic planning, or we can use any other model? As of today, yes, Porter's value chain model is very, very valuable. Okay, I think that's all. So good. As usual, I think your students ask very good questions. So that's a very ominous sign. So all the teachers at FOSTEMA, beware. I think you should keep half the class for teaching and half the session for answering the questions. Thank you very much, all of you, for patient hearing. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you very much.
Well, Pradeep, thank you for coming and sharing your valuable time with all our students. We haven't met for many years, so it's a delight to see you. I must say I'm always happy to see someone more senior than me from IMA. It makes me feel younger.
Yeah,
Though having said that, I don't think, except for your hair, which you have lost, you continue with your unique combination of energy, humor, and humbleness. And it's always a pleasure to sort of hear from you. Now, as far as our kids are concerned, you not only gave valuable knowledge on strategy and planning, but also valuable advice on how to conduct yourself in a sense, what should be their strategy when they go through business school and how this can be applied. Um, I think at the very outset, you started our kids in a very confident note that business managers will always be in demand. If the times are good, you will need managers for growth. If the times are bad, you will still need managers to manage the company, make them more efficient, make them and perhaps guide them through the minefields. So we are always there. Having said that, um, a few of my takeaways are that you took us from a journey from where strategy started, perhaps 50 years back, when really production was the big focus in management, to today, where the focus is really the customer, being customer centric, and the tools today is how to differentiate oneself, and of course the big buzzword of sustainable competitive advantage.
right.
If our kids even took 20% away from what you told them, this will put them in a good stead during the next 2 years when they will cover many of these areas. And of course, they will say, yes, so yes, this is what Pradeep talked to us about, and this is how you can relate. And I think there were 3 points how the world has changed in terms of management with 3 parameters which you mentioned, which I think we should keep our ears open for. One is technology. Then, of course, a much smarter customer. He no longer can be taken for granted. And also the rise of unpredictability. From a time when people could plan for 100 years, today we are hard pressed to make 6 months plans or 1 year plans where the environment hasn't changed during all this time. So I think this is a very good context. And of course, bringing us to us very fundamental basic things like vision, mission, goals, objectives. These are the hallmarks of any good manager. From our side and from the side of students. Once again, I'd like to thank you for a very, very interesting and productive time. Thank you once again, Pradeep.
Thank you. Pleasure was entirely mine. Thank you very much, all of you.
And we hope to see you again.
I will just come in for a minute before the poll is conducted. And I am reminded of a story which I learned during my management days. Pradeep Kumar talked again and again about, when he talked of mission, what business are we in? So this story dates back to many, many years. In Britain, there were 2 companies who were making whips, जिसको चाबुक कहते हैं घोड़ा गाड़ियों के लिए, वो बनाती थी. और both were making excellent whips, बहुत अच्छे चाबुक बनाती थी. Both used to compete with each other neck to neck. हुआ ये कि उसी समय ऑटोमोबाइल्स की एंट्री हुई और घोड़ा गाड़ियां मार्केट से बाहर जाने लगी. These 2 companies which were making horse whips, उसमें से एक कंपनी तो उसने देखा कि उसके सेल दिन पे दिन डाउन हो रहे हैं बिकॉज किसी को चाबुक की जरूरत नहीं थी, एंड द कंपनी वेंट डाउन द ड्रेन. The other one managed to survive and do very well. And when a research was done, it was found कि एक कंपनी का बिजनेस था सिर्फ चाबुक बनाने का, and the other company thought they were into mobility acceleration business, and they started making carburetors and survived. So this is the why, if you know very clearly what business you are in, you will survive all changes and everywhere. Thank you very much, Pradeep, for taking our students through this. I think now the poll can be conducted, and we can.
Please,
Okay.
students,
Have a
please
good
stay
day. Thank you.
back and participate in the poll.